also work with the Michigan Department of Transportation, that kind of thing, or SEMCOG, Southeastern Michigan? Do you?
Yeah, I sit on the Transportation Advisory
Yes.
Council of SEMCOG and
Southeastern Michigan Council of Governors?
Of governments, yeah.
Yes.
So it's which is a coalition of governmental units all around the 7-county Southeast Michigan region. So that's an advisory committee that advises on transportation policy, and you know, we try to advocate for the non-motorized and the transit elements of transportation in Southeast Michigan. Okay. And then with regard to the state, there's communication in a lot of the projects we work on with Department of Transportation officials at the state level on a number of projects. Okay.
And so are there other groups that you may be looking to work with that as yet you haven't made contact with? Is this
well, we work
growing?
both with public agencies and with other nonprofit groups. For example, Ann Arbor Bicycling
Yes.
Touring Society is
Right.
They focus more on tours, we focus more on the advocacy part, but we work closely with them on a number of things. Michigan Mountain Biking Association has been involved with things that we've done. At the state level, there are organizations such as League of Michigan Bicyclists, which works on the on-road biking facilities, and there's the Michigan Trails and Greenways Alliance, which works more on trails and greenway corridors, and the two together kind of, again, work towards that idea of a system of trails and on-road facilities for biking and walking.
And just kind of to answer a little further in terms of organizations we'd like to work with further,
Yes.
I think because our emphasis has, because of our volunteer base has been so much Ann Arbor and Ypsi, I think for the future one of the things we'd like to do is work more with those other townships and towns in Washtenaw County and strengthen our relationship with the city staff there and government leaders there as well, and kind of strengthen that role so that they can see us as in future as somebody that can reach out to the community and bring people to their public meetings, which is often very hard for government to kind of get those people into the room to sometimes. So that's kind of, I think, in the future where we'd like to see ourselves grow a little bit.
I can mention too, in addition to sitting on some of these committees, we testify at public hearings like of city councils or road commission, county road commission, or other public entities to, you know, as needed. And we also communicate, of course, with officials, both elected officials and staff on projects of interest.
Okay. So could you tell us, in long-range plans, I've read that there's a non-motorized plan, and it's Ann Arbor has its own, plus the county has its. So could you talk a little bit how they dovetail, or maybe there are disagreements, and really what is this non-motorized plan, which is supposed to now go to 2030, I think. It's really...
Yeah, both the county and city, as you mentioned, have a non-motorized plan. Both of those were adopted in 2006. The county-wide plan lists hundreds of projects for biking and walking around the county, and the city plan likewise lists a large number of projects. And so those become a good guidepost for long-term how public officials and citizens would like to see things involved. And WBWC was involved in the committees that helped develop those plans. At the county level, one issue that we've had is that with these hundreds of projects, there's no procedure in the plan for prioritizing projects, and there are no priorities listed. So we thought that it was important as a citizen group to try to identify what we thought were the highest priority projects for implementation. So we've made a list of about 16 projects that we consider high priority to help make that countywide system to do what we could short-term to improve that. The long-term goal is to implement all of these projects, but it will take many years to implement all of those.
Is there overlap between the county and the city?
There's some amount, but primarily they focus, the county focuses outside the city and the city focuses within.
So what about connecting up? You mentioned border to border, and that would go through?
Yeah, both would have elements of that in the plans.
Okay, all right.
Because the trail does go through Ann Arbor, as you mentioned, and through Ypsilanti.
Right. So is Ann Arbor providing funding for projects to implement some of these priorities of yours?
Yes. Some funding comes from transportation agencies, some comes from parks agencies. So some projects are funded through Michigan Department of Transportation. Some are funded through the DNR, through the Natural Resources Trust Fund. The county has funds through its parks program, its parks millage, to implement projects. And likewise, the city has project funding through its parks program to implement projects. So a particular project requires putting together the appropriate mix of funding agencies of state, local, county, and federal funding to make a project happen, and it varies between projects.
I see.
But you're right that that's one of the issues, I think, for projects everywhere, is finding appropriate funding these days and determining what gets prioritized. We've built a hefty system of roads now and that need to be maintained, and of course that's a benefit to bikers as well, to have those roads well maintained and pothole free. But in terms of getting money for new non-motorized projects, it's often it's difficult.
Right. Non-motorized communities are seen as a benefit, an economic benefit, a quality of life benefit. Is that does that help you to promote?
Yeah, it's all of the above. I think it's in general, it's a large quality of life benefit to have improved non-motorized facilities in an area. There's improvements for economic vitality and public health and environmental protection. In Washtenaw County, we have poor air quality. In fact, we receive federal funds for because we're a non-attainment area for a certain type of particulate. Of course, any way that we can decrease automobile usage and increase bicycling and walking is a benefit for that, and it offers, of course, energy independence as well if people aren't driving as much. So there's all of those benefits. I was looking around and saw something from Rails to Trails, which had shown that in Portland, Oregon, I'll just read for a second so I get all the numbers right, $57 million has been spent on a 300-mile bikeway and pedestrian network since 1991, and bicycling has increased up to 15 to 20% a year. By 2040, Rails to Trails calculates that Portland's net benefit from better health and reduced fuel savings will be $1.2 billion. So investments in this really do pay back in the long term in other ways.
Okay.
People see it as a quality of life benefit and really an economic development issue. By making areas attractive to people to walk and bike and to have parklands and trails that are attractive to people, it makes the area more attractive for people to live and for employers to locate their businesses there. So it's really tied in with economic development, we think.
Yeah, Gen Y and young professionals are always saying
Right.
that's one of the top things that they rank.
Yeah.